Ladies and gentlemen, Executive Vice President, Primus Software Corporation, Bhupinder Chawla.
Good morning. It's almost mid-morning now, and so much awesome thoughts, initiatives, ideas, wonderful. It's exciting to hear about the innovation occurring here in Georgia from our top 10 companies. As a representative of Primus Software, also a Georgia company, I can say we are lucky to live in a state where the technology industry is thriving. Primus is once again a platinum sponsor of the Georgia Technology Summit. We believe events like this contribute to the success of our technology community, and we've been part of it for the past several years. It's my pleasure today to introduce Duncan Angove, President of Infor. For those of you who are tweeting, how many tweets we have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 30. Please stop tweeting. Please stop updating your Facebook status and pay attention. And any of you who have tried to stay as far away from social media as possible, please pay attention also, because Duncan is going to talk today about working the way we live and applying social media features and techniques to business applications. Whether or not you like social media, it is changing the way we live. So it's important for us all to understand how it can relate to innovation. Duncan has an impressive resume of technology experience. In addition to working with Infor, one of the largest business software companies in the world, Duncan previously worked at Oracle Corporation, and prior to Oracle, he was a member of the Retech executive team that took the company public and was later acquired by Oracle. A native of England, Duncan holds a bachelor degree from the prestigious University College London. I think you will really enjoy the next presentation, so please help me in welcoming Duncan to the stage. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Duncan Angove, obviously, hopefully. I'm thrilled to be able to talk to all of you at TAG today. This is my first one. I've lived in Atlanta for 10 years, 14 years in the US, moved over from the UK, spent 4 years in Minnesota before I couldn't survive the winters anymore and came down here to suffer from pollen. So I don't know about you, every year you're here, it gets worse and worse. So I am actually English. I sound Australian, which is probably disturbing for Australians and deeply disturbing for me. But I actually, around the show floor, you may actually, and around the room here, I actually have a twin brother, identical twin brother. And we're both in technology. And first we were both in retail technology. Now we're both in sort of more broad-based software technology. And it's terrible when you have a twin because people always think he's me. And he doesn't. If I've met this person before, they think I'm just being really rude and arrogant because I don't recognize them. You know, so his name is Simon. I don't know if he's out there. I should make him stand up and embarrass him. Simon, why don't you stand up? There he is. See, you guys, there he is at the back there by the thing. So if I have a blank look on my face and you come up and I'm supposed to know you, it either means I've actually forgotten your name or it's Simon you're talking to. So, but anyway, I started out when I lived in the UK. I was with Accenture in their strategic consulting practice, doing a lot of kind of value targeting type work. And then I joined a company called Retech, which was from Australia but based in the US at the time. I was employee number 36, and Retech was in sort of the ERP space for retail. It was one of the first sort of Oracle-based open systems products aimed at sort of merchandising and all the things that a retailer needs to run its business. You know, we took that company public in 1999, and very good timing, by the way. And then Oracle ended up acquiring Retech in 2005, and I stayed on there as the general manager. And it was actually the first global business unit that Oracle had created to focus on industries. You know, Oracle had struggled in prior years to crack how to go to market and win in a particular vertical. So it was the first model we implemented like that. And you know, we made about $1 billion of acquisitions in the first year, and And we're basically the #1 provider in retail from a software perspective, over the next 6-7 years. And we actually took that model and replicated it in telecommunications and banking and utilities and so on. So I worked for Charles Phillips there, who was the president at Oracle. And when he left, he called me up and he said, hey, I'm looking at this company called Infor. They're based in Alpharetta, Georgia, which is actually 20 minutes from my house without traffic. And so he said, hey, I'd love you to come on board as president, and let's build a really, really cool company. And he said, we have a couple of rules, like, we'll never hire people that we don't want to have dinner with. We've got to do stuff that's cool and disruptive and different. And we both had a shared vision for building a new class of enterprise software company. And there were lots of problems that we'd seen in enterprise software over our career that we'd always wanted to go and solve. Things like software localization and upgrades and support. And had a whole list of these things and said, let's find a company where we can actually solve these problems and have an appetite to do it, and build a cool business. And we've actually attracted a lot of incredible talent to the company since then. I've been there for just over 15 months now. I guess at some point I should actually use my slides. I have actually given a presentation where I forgot to use my slides. Let me bring them up. I've got a cool-looking 2.0 entry slide, of course. The only thing is, apparently you're not supposed to use email anymore. I gave someone a business card the other day. It was this young woman, she was like 20, and she saw an email on there, and she made a little frown. It should have been like a Facebook message thing or something. So apparently you're not supposed to use email anymore. It means you're a dinosaur. Anyway, so that's sort of where I've been and what I've done. And what I wanted to talk about today was, I want to take a little bit of time at the beginning just to talk about who Infor are. Believe it or not, it's the 3rd largest enterprise software company in the world, and a lot of people haven't heard about it. And I didn't actually know a lot about it before I joined. And describe a little bit about the transformation that we've gone through, because it's kind of cool. It's a company that's just up the road, up 400 at the Wynwood Park exit. And it's been a remarkable transformation in terms of what we've taken that company through. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And that sort of sets up the strategy that we had around user experience. So I wanted to spend most of the time talking about user experience and how some of the new technologies out there, like in particular social computing and some of the application user experience technologies, are helping change the way work gets done in the enterprise. And in particular, how we're leveraging that to change the way work gets done in sort of the core industries that we focus on. In addition to being the president at Infor, I'm also on the board of a company called 8th Bridge, and I was actually one of the very first angel investors in it back in 2009. And they're now one of the leaders in the social commerce space. And their mandate and mission in life is to basically reshape e-commerce around people, not brands. And these guys are right out on the bleeding edge. And quite frankly, my investment will either be worth 0 or something really impressive. You never know on a daily basis. So I'll also talk a little bit about what 8th Bridge is doing. And by the way, I'm obsessed with etymology. I love the origin of names and companies. And 8th Bridge is actually kind of cool. And obviously, they're focused on social. And a big part of their play is based on Facebook's Open Graph. Which I'll talk about. I'll talk a little bit later, give you a primer on that, and talk about how we're leveraging it. But 8th Bridge actually comes from the theory that Leonhard Euler came up with, and he was a Swiss guy that lived in the town of Königsberg, back in the day, and that used to be Prussia back then. Now it's Kaliningrad in Russia, and there was a river there, the Pregel River, and it had 2 large islands in it, and those 2 large islands were connected to each other and the mainland by 7 bridges. And Euler's theory, it was actually a negative theory, was that it was impossible to walk through the city and cross every bridge once and only once. Okay? And this actually was the origin of graph theory. And all of us in the technology space, network topology and stuff like that, all came from graph theory. So vertices and nodes and all those types of things came from graph theory, came from this Bridges of Königsberg thing. So 8th Bridge's name is that if you add an 8th bridge, the problem gets solved. Okay? It actually opens the graph, right? So that's where their name came from. 8th Bridge. It actually solves and harnesses the open graph. So that's where their name came from. So anyway, I'm kind of consumed with etymology. So let's talk a little bit about Infor, first of all. So, we are the third largest enterprise software company behind Oracle and SAP. The company's been around since 2002. It's a private equity-backed company. The backers are Golden Gate Capital, who are arguably one of the most successful technology private equity investors of the last decade, and Summit Partners, who are based out of Boston and are very much a growth investment-oriented organization. And like everything in all maturing industries, you see a lot of consolidation when a market matures, and it's no different in technology. And I lived through 46 different acquisitions when I was at Oracle, and Infor was basically built through acquiring a lot of different companies, about 42 in total. And the management team that was there was tasked with basically integrating all of these companies together, creating common back office systems. So for example, we had 27 different general ledgers and 15 different CRM systems. So all of that had to get onto a single global instance, and we had to have a set of products that were integrated and we were selling in the marketplace. And that's sort of where the company came from. And then Golden Gate, like every company, goes through different journeys, and these different teams have taken on different aspects of that journey. And the feeling was that for the next phase of growth for Infor was that it needed a product, customer-oriented management team that would drive hyper-growth through having world-class products and driving license revenue, right? So that was what attracted Charles to the company. He's a very, very product-oriented guy. He was at Oracle as well. Before that, he was an analyst at Morgan Stanley, where he covered software. And then myself as well. I actually, the main thing I do at Infor is I look after engineering and all the product innovation we have and so on. So on, I think it was December 6, 2010, 4 executives from Oracle that all happened to, 3 of us worked for Charles and one of them worked for Mark Hurd, all joined Infor on the same day. And the Infor guys felt like it was an acquisition. They wanted to rename the company Inforacle. And we sat in a room the whole of December and basically did business review. And it really, tell you the truth, it was kind of like due diligence, because we were able to take all the things that we thought were good at a company like Oracle around, operational best practices, but all the things that we didn't like about enterprise software and apply that playbook to every part of the business. Okay, so that's sort of the journey that we went through, and I'll talk a little bit in a second about what came out of that and what we did and how it translated into our product strategy, at which the user experience was at the key. So when you just look at some of the numbers, we've got 12,000 employees worldwide. About 400 to 450 of them are up the road in Alpharetta. That's most of all of our kind of back office stuff. We've got about 80,000 customers. We add about 2,800 to 3,000 new customers every year. We do $3 billion in revenue. We've been there for 5 quarters now, the new team, and for 5 consecutive quarters, we've delivered organic license growth that is dramatically faster than the rest of the market and our 2 largest competitors. And over those last 5 quarters, we've actually delivered double-digit organic license growth, right? So it's actually been pretty staggering in terms of what we've seen, in terms of how the strategy is resonating. We do business in 128 different countries around the world. And we're predominantly, if you look at the software that we have a whole set of different ERP solutions that are focused on different industries. So we have an ERP that's focused on sort of discrete industries like, aerospace and defense and automotive. We've got customers like Boeing and British Aerospace and Lockheed Martin and Ferrari and Mitsubishi. We've got an ERP product that's focused more on the process industries like food and beverage and chemicals and so on. We've got, I think it's 6 of the 10 largest brewers in the world, companies like Heineken and SAB Miller and so on. We also, outside of manufacturing, we're in the distribution vertical as well. And then more on the sort of service industry side, we have a huge practice in the hospitality business. So 90% of all the casinos on the Vegas Strip are run by Infor software. And we've got large hotel chains outside that, like Marriott and Hyatt and Sheraton and Acceptus, all well-known brands. We've got a big business in public sector. And then lastly, the healthcare market. We acquired a company called Lawson Software last summer, based out of St. Paul. And they're about an $800 million or $770 million software company. At the time we acquired them, have now been integrated into the Infor umbrella. And in the healthcare market, Lawson had a very, very strong position. About 60% of all the hospitals in the U.S. run their back office on Lawson. And we have a number of customers actually in Georgia. So if you look at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, DeKalb Medical, Piedmont Healthcare, Northeast Georgia Health System, and so on. And so very, very strong presence, lots of customers. We're unique in that we can scale up and scale down in the market. We serve very large customers like Boeing, where you're talking about 35,000 concurrent users on the system, all the way down to very small 25-person sort of job shops. Okay, so it's sort of unique in terms of our position. So that's sort of who Infor are. So what I wanted to talk about next was sort of the transformation that we took the company through. And when you look at it, we came up with sort of a tagline, if you like, but really it embodies our strategy. And the tagline is specialized by industry, engineered for speed. And sort of the key three things there are industries, engineered, and speed. And I'll just talk about them briefly. First of all, one of the main theses that we had when we left Oracle was that the next big opportunity in enterprise software was going to be in industry-specific applications. Okay? Did you know that 42% of all the custom modification done in the world to software is done to cover off gaps in industry functionality? 42% of all the mods that we do are to cover off industry functionality. So I think that the generic back office stuff has been well served by enterprise software. But clearly the fact that we're still seeing so much modification done on industry-specific processes tells you it's not well served. We also felt that there was sort of a point in the market where the other major players had become distracted, right? They were drifting to the infrastructure side, moving down into hardware or into in-memory databases, or spending money on next generation solutions that were sold at different markets, right? So it felt like there was also an opening in the market to actually double down on industry-specific software. And we looked at Infor, we felt it was a company that had tremendous applications and great customers and real strength in the verticals it served. And we actually felt the same thing about Lawson, right? Real strength in public sector and fashion and food and beverage and obviously healthcare. So that was sort of the genesis behind what we did with Lawson. We felt it would help accelerate our move into this industry model. So that was sort of the first thesis. It was build a company that was specialized by industry and went after that core. The second part was the word engineered, and this probably was the single biggest transformation that we undertook at Infor. And in general, you've got the discipline of market leaders, right, where you can compete either on low cost, better service, or product innovation, right, in any industry. And there's no doubt about it, in enterprise software, the only long-term source of competitive advantage is by competing on product. Okay? Cost and service are important, but those are not long-term sources of competitive advantage. So we have a philosophy that you put product first in every single thing that you do. Okay? So we spend an incredible amount of time on product. I think the team at Infor told us that in the first 3 months we spent more time looking at product, I mean deep in the bowels, the entire management team, than they had in the prior 8 years, and that's not unusual, when you look at software companies. So we believe you put product first, everything else takes care of itself. Now, you just look at the Apple iPad or the iPhone. I mean, it's easy to sell, to market, to update. I mean, you have a great product, a lot of other things get solved. So that was our philosophy, put product first in everything we do. And we actually went around transforming the company around that notion. A lot of software companies and technology companies, and you guys all know this, by their very nature become incredibly sales-led, right? We're quarterly driven companies, and there's just this very strong type A personality. And it just as a notion that the center of the company starts to gravitate around sales and it's tactically quarterly driven, right? So we wanted to move away from that. Like I said, build a different type of company that really competed on the strengths of its products. So the first thing we did is we actually pulled $25 million out of G&A, out of the back office, and reinvested it back in product. Okay, so we went out and we hired in the first 12 months 515 engineers, and we went around the world meeting all the development teams saying, show us where your roadmap is, show us what's different and disruptive about it, right? And we were very, very key on pushing them to think about things that were disruptive, to challenge conventional thinking in the way that everything is done, right? Because when you're the third largest player, you can't just do what the other guys are doing, right? I always remember in, game theory, if there's 2 yachts in a race, right? It's all the guy that's up front, the guy that's leading, all he has to do is mimic what the person behind is doing, right? When they tack, you tack, because it means they can never get by you, right? So just doing what the other guy's doing a follow, fill and follow strategy doesn't work. You need to challenge conventional thinking and be disruptive, and bring value and innovation to your customers. So we challenged them on all of that, and then based on that, we made allocations of investment, and so on into these roadmaps, and tried to accelerate all of them by at least a year. And then, it goes beyond that, though. We moved the development people in the engineering organization onto comp plans that looked more like sales plans. So suddenly development now were being compensated on the license revenues of their products, right? Again, in most technology companies, development don't even get a bonus, right? So that was sort of the second thing we did. In most companies in technology, again, the quarterly business reviews that we all go through, right, are led and conducted by sales. And it's very rare you can see engineering invited to it. At Infor, we actually flipped the entire model. The business reviews now are owned and conducted by engineering, and sales and consulting and support are invited to it, right? So it just drives a completely different dynamic when you start putting product first in every single thing that you do. So that was probably the single largest transformation that we went through, and I can't say it happened all instantly, but after 12 months, it really started to bed in. And by the way, it starts to attract people. People want to work at companies where you're investing in product and you're doing cool and innovative things, right? Salespeople want to work for a company where the product helps win the deal, right? When you walk in the door, you've already got a leg up because the product's doing great stuff. So that's kind of what we did from an engineering perspective. And then probably the next bit was all around speed. So build an industry-specific applications company, win on the strength of products and drive that transformation. And then the last piece was engineer for speed, right? So, we believe that the basis for competition in the coming years will be speed, not scale, right? And we believe this is true for our customers. Okay, so if you look at us as human beings, we're consumed with the notion of speed. We even come up with acronyms to describe it in all the industries that we're in. If you're in the sort of food industry, we have fast food. We have quick service restaurants. We have FMCG, which is fast-moving consumer goods. Right? We're consumed with the notion of speed and the immediacy of now. Right? And if you look at it, it's actually technology and the speed and flow of information that sits on top of that technology that's been the single biggest driver of this rate of change in speed. If you think about it, I read an article the other day that was talking about the Battle of Trafalgar, which is a famous English Navy victory off the coast of Spain, Cape of Spain. It took 5 days for the news of that battle to make it back to the streets of London, and it's just off the Cape of Spain. When we had the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, it took 5 seconds for that information to make its way to the streets of London. So just the sheer rate of change in the speed of information is changing the rate of speed of business and everything. Technology accelerates the rhythm of life in business. The speed at which your processes run, the speed at which you make decisions, the speed at which your supply chain runs, the speed at which your working capital turns, and so on. Technology is driving a huge explosion in the amount of information. And technology is changing the expectations of everyone, right? Of staff, of consumers, of suppliers, and of shareholders, right? And technology is the source of this massive rate of change in speed. So we felt that it was very, very important that we build software that helps our customers compete on the basis of speed and do everything dramatically faster than their competition, right? So that became a very, very core part of what we're trying to do. But we also said we need to take this on board as part of our own DNA. And Infor itself needs to compete on the basis of speed. So, we're the third largest software company, so we have some own scale on our own right. It means that we can invest more in products and innovation and distribution and so on than others can. But we're not as large as our next 2 nearest competitors. But one thing we know for sure, and I know this because I came from Oracle, is that we can do everything dramatically faster than they can. If you look at Google, probably one of the reasons they won wasn't just the fact that they were a highly innovative company and attracted unbelievable talent of people, but it was their rate of innovation, the fact that they outran guys like Yahoo and the rest of them, right? So we felt like that was something that we needed to do at Infor, so that actually being faster becomes part of our brand equity, And that was a core part of what we started to look at. So we went off and believe it or not, we hired someone with the title of VP of Speed. And we told him that was going to be his title. He was very goofy about it. Come on, I can't. Who wants to be VP of Speed? And his job is, he reports to the CEO, Charles, and his job is basically to look at everything that we do with the lens of speed, okay? So that when customers interact with us, right, they get a sense that everything just happens faster, right? Simple things like paperwork is faster, escalations get resolved faster, upgrades are faster, release cycles are faster. Everything is faster, and we look at our own internal processes as well. So, you take an example just in the space of enterprise support, right, Ken? And let's face it, guys, I mean, support is done horribly in this industry, yeah? And, so we looked at that and we made investments that say, what are all the things we can do to make support happen dramatically faster? Because generally when someone has an issue with software, they want it resolved as quickly as possible. So we invested in an application that gets plugged into our applications that basically communicates all the diagnostic information back. So when a customer calls into our support desk, all the configuration information about that customer's environment is already there right in front of them. They don't have to ask the 20 questions, right? So it's a small thing, but it helps speed it up. We have a philosophy that we will answer every single phone call when someone calls into support. The approach in enterprise software recently has been use technology to outsource all of that. You never want to get someone, allow them to talk to a human being, right? We hide behind things like self-service. So again, the intelligent call center system we put in allows someone to be routed instantly and automatically to the person that actually has the skill set to solve the problem. And we estimate that solves about 3 hours. Right? So now, when you add up all these small incremental things that we're doing in support, it has to take time out of the cycle. So we looked at every single process and basically said, how do we inject more speed into every single thing that we do? So that was really the next one, is speed. And by the way, I have no idea why, and my slide isn't up here. Put my slide back up. I've really got to talk to marketing about this, but they have a speed dial up here, and it's about speed, and it's the needle's at like 75 kilometers per hour, miles per hour. It's not very fast. It needs to be 120 or something. See? Yes. Okay. So that was sort of it, right? It was specialized by industry and engineer for speed, right? Put product at the center, and that was really the transformation that we've gone through over the last 5 quarters. So what I want to talk about quickly is just how we translated that into a product strategy and how that ties back into our user experience. And then I'll draw on what we did at Infor and what I've seen at 8th Bridge in terms of how we see the user experience evolving. Oh, of course, appropriately, we're also a supplier to Ferrari. We went live with Ferrari in Maranello, Italy in January. This is actually Alonso winning the Formula 1 Grand Prix in Malaysia last week. You can't really see it very well, but at the very bottom there's a little Infor logo on it. So, and I could take you through the whole Ferrari story, but we don't have time. But it's really good. Okay, so our product strategy, we were very thoughtful. We took 8 or 9 months before we went back to our customers and told them, what the strategy was. And, because we wanted it to be pragmatic and consistent and not change all the time. And actually, when we came out with this, we sent out 250,000 letters to all of our customers. And Charles, the CEO, had this bright idea that we put all our personal emails at the bottom of the letters. So it had a fairly busy inbox, but it was a good idea. We wanted to be accessible and flat. And I will tell you that after we took a couple of the industry analysts through sort of the culture and transformational change we've taken the company through and what our product strategy was, this one industry analyst said to me, it feels like Infor actually is the world's largest startup. Right? You're just a startup with a huge customer base and a $3 billion revenue stream. And I think that is how we think of ourselves. It was a canvas upon which we could paint this vision for a new type of enterprise software company and go tackle these really big problems that no one else had done. And and if you think about it, startups do everything very, very quickly. They're innovative, they're disruptive, they're customer-centric, and everything just happens faster. And we try and embody that in what we do. So we sort of broke our product strategy down into sort of 3 areas. First of all was, leverage technology to change the way work is done in the industries that we serve. And I'm going to spend most of my time talking about that. The second was, I talked about this, as it relates to our applications, was specialize by industry and do what's called complete the app, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then underneath all of this, provide sort of a middleware platform, the architecture that makes all of this stuff work together and deliver the user experience and business intelligence and application integration. Deliver an architecture that's engineered for speed and change, okay, and supports this whole notion of competing on the basis of speed. So that's really what we did. So first of all, we picked the 12 industries that we were going to go focus on. Actually, it's 13. 13 industries we were going to go focus on. And our strategy here was, Infor had multiple ERPs, and analysts in the market kept saying, well, at some point you've got to rationalize all of these. Doesn't every enterprise software company need to get to some uber new code line that spans every single application that you have? And actually, we took that and said, no, that's not right. Actually, we think you should have purpose-built ERP solutions by industry. So, we don't believe that it's right that the same solution that you sell to someone in automotive is the same solution that will run a hospital or a hotel, right? Because what that ends up happening is they get incredibly bloated, they're difficult to implement and maintain by IT, and they're very complicated to use for the end user, right? It also means that the software companies developing on it can only move an inch at a time across the 13 industries. So by having purpose-built ERP solutions that focus on these different industries, we're able to go dramatically faster and innovate more than we could if we weren't, and it's simpler and better for customers. So that was sort of the first thing. We have these purpose-built solutions. The second thing is, and I referenced it earlier, is that we felt like the market had stopped investing in the core ERP engine, and we had this notion of enriching the core, right? Everyone's spending money in software, the software companies are, all around the edges or in adjacent markets, and they've lost sight of enriching the core solution, which actually runs a company. It's what you run your business on. So we have this notion of enriching the core application, because that ultimately is what drives the business case. I don't know why I've got a Sony pop-up on here, but this kind of gets to the point about Amazon, doesn't it? The second part was we wanted to have a notion to productize, not customize. The dirty secret of enterprise software is that we ship incomplete applications to customers. And it's happened for years and years and years. The first thing that happens when you hand off your enterprise ERP to a customer is they have to turn around and hand it to a systems integrator to finish it. So again, this is one of the problems that had always bothered Charles and me through the years, is that applications should work with no mods, with no modifications. So we sat down with a bunch of CIOs and we listed up all the things that make it difficult to implement, things that slow down implementations, the things that prevent upgrades. And what are all those hidden costs that no one talks about, right? So localizations, it's done absolutely horribly in this marketplace, and I'll talk about it. Analytics, everyone builds custom reports. Integration, most of the time when you buy software just from one company, it doesn't even integrate together, let alone common integrations you find within an industry. Industry content, I talked about that, 42% of all the mods done out there, and so on and so on and so on. So there's all these hidden costs that we wanted to go after. And again, we wanted to take a disruptive approach and leverage new technologies like the cloud and emerging standards to basically do that. Localization is a classic example. The way localizations is done in the enterprise software space today is that it's done redundantly across multiple applications. So if you have multiple ERPs within a global multinational, they're doing the same localizations across those different ERPs, right? So how many times do you have to write the statutory reporting for Brazil, or the contra accounting in the general ledger for Russia, right? Companies right now are replicating that functionality across all of those applications. The second thing is, in smaller markets, right, it generally gets handed to a partner, right, which means you suffer from quality and delays, and you're running multiple instances of the same application because you have these different partners in the fold. And even if the enterprise software company provides it, it generally lags general availability by a year. And anyone out there who, by the way, has to do multinational deployments, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the challenge is, none of the enterprise software companies are focused on this because it's nothing you ever lead within a sale. It's kind of hygiene and grubby and under the covers, right? So we wanted to solve this. So we're delivering a cloud-based service that basically abstracts all of those localizations into a central on-demand cloud, and it will actually basically help localize all the different applications that you have. So it's instantaneously updated, it's available on demand, it's a single code line, and so on and so on. So we're trying to take a disruptive approach that leverages cloud and other technologies where possible. But the point is, we want to complete the application. And then the last area is, when you deliver integrated suites of software, there's an expectation that you have common components across them. So a common user experience, common reporting, common workflow, common integration, and so on. So, but that in essence is table stakes. But this comes back to the first organizational dynamic that I talked about, which is that if you have multiple ERP solutions focused on different industries, the first objection you hear is, well, how can you scale financially across all of that, right? It's just too expensive. And we do that by pulling out everything that's common across those applications into a central team. This is a 500-person team that builds all these common technology components and then is leveraged by the different industry groups. So those industry groups are just focused on building industry functionality. When I arrived at Infor, every application development team had its own mobile group, 4 or 5 people that were building out the architecture. So it wasn't terribly good, and it was taking a long time. We created a centralized, 75-person strong mobile team of the best and brightest, and we're doing what's called build once, build better. And we look to build once and build better everywhere that we do. So that's one of the organizational dynamics that we got across. Okay, so I'm going to skip over this. So that really is sort of the summary of what we did from an Infor strategy perspective and the transformation that we went through. And that really gets to the bottom 2 bullets. So what I want to talk about now is how I went about changing the way work is done. So let me just grab my notes here. So one thing that will be obvious to you is that, like most enterprise software companies, and actually most customers and companies out there, is we have a heterogeneous application environment, right? So we have to solve the problem that all of our customers had to solve, okay? And what we wanted to do is we wanted to deliver a next generation user experience for our applications. And we looked out there, when customers think about a next generation user experience, they generally throw out, like some of the things that are up here. It's got to be contextual, it's got to be business intelligence centric, need mobility and social, and it's got to be beautiful. And the way that most companies in the market have approached this, they've gone off and they've built completely brand new enterprise applications from the ground up, right? Fusion, business by design, and so on. And the notion is that you deliver an application user interface that has business intelligence fused into it, right? So if you ever go online and you look at those, they have pretty pie charts baked right into the application screen. We felt like that was the wrong approach to take, because it takes at least a decade to bed down and mature an enterprise application, right? And our customers have made huge investments in the applications that they've already installed from us. And those applications are deeply functional from an industry perspective. So what we had to come up with was a kind of a user experience architecture that we could bring to our existing applications. That was the single biggest constraint, kind of objective function that we had. The second thing is that when we looked at next generation applications, one of the core principles was around what we call flip the structure of work. If you look at when enterprise software was sort of first came around, it was very focused on process automation and data entry. It was hardcore clerks that were basically doing data administration. It was about getting all the data into one place, single version of the truth, and all of that. And even the workplace back then was very top-down. It was command and control. Innovation was supposed to happen at the top and trickle down, and so on. Clearly, if you look at the workplace now, it's a dramatically different place, right? The social computing is coming in. You've got IT convergence, people bringing their own devices to work. You've got generation, Y, X, Z, coming into the workplace. And it's a different kind of place. And the enterprise applications need to evolve to support that new workplace. So we call this flip the structure of work. And the idea is that we support that new way of working. And we have data and information and events follow the user. They come to the user. You're not going into an ERP system to do your data entry day of work. We're actually pushing events and information to you automatically as you need it. So that was sort of the second big thing. Okay, so what I want to talk about first is beauty. And we use this phrase, consumer-grade user experiences, and let users work the way they live. Okay, so if you think back to, I guess in general what I would say is the pace of innovation in enterprise software has dramatically lagged the pace of innovation in the consumer web. Okay, so you think back, this here is a screenshot of Amazon.com from 1994. And right now, I mean, look at this, okay? So this is where the web was, right? And if you look at what's happened in the last 10 years, there's been a tremendous amount of innovation. So you've got beautiful websites that are visual. They've got tons of user-generated contents and social information on them, right? I go to Amazon to read the reviews and see what my peers are saying about it, right? There's rich media, search. 60% of all shopping missions on a website are driven by search. It's got facets. It's got all this information that helps me come to the right decision. And when I'm ready to make that decision that's been informed by all this stuff, I click one button and it happens automatically, okay? Now, the reality is, as a human being, when I visit a website, I'm really just interacting with an item master and an order management engine. Now, that's no different than the enterprise space. We have people that interact with item screens and order entry screens all the time in enterprise software. So now, compare what the ERP application looked like back in 1994 and compare with what it looks like today. And the reality is, with the exception of some pretty style sheets and things like that, it has not dramatically improved. Okay, so we want to basically take all this innovation that's happened on the consumer web and bring it to enterprise software. And one of the things that we realized in doing this is that we needed to make beauty a competence, right? So one of the things I loved about Steve Jobs' books is when he talked about even the inside of the computer needs to be beautiful, right? And some of the notions around the Toyota production control philosophy around cleanliness drives quality and attention to detail. I think there's some truth in that, right? So we want to build beautiful applications. And what we realized was that when you look around any company, particularly in software, we outsourced beauty, right? We spend money on ad agencies to come back with ad concepts, with branding agencies. We hire a website firm to build our website. We go to companies like Frog and so on to help do human factors engineering design, right? We outsource all of it. It's not a core competence. So we decided we're going to build our own interactive design agency inside Infor. And you can actually self-fund it. All of you guys can do this. You just look at all the money and headcount you have around the organization, and it actually funds this. So we went out and we interviewed a bunch of guys that came from the interactive design agency space. And I remember we were in New York. It was Charles and we had to interview these 3 guys who were coming in, and beautiful portfolios of work. I mean, just gorgeous. Nothing like you've ever seen in enterprise software. And I remember I said to Charles before the meeting, I said, look, this is, the person that makes us the most uncomfortable is probably who we should hire, right? So I see this guy coming down the hallway, he's got jeans and a black t-shirt on and loads of tattoos, and this is gonna be so uncomfortable. But the whole point is you want to infect your DNA, right? Because it's a different type of person. Actually, it was terrible. I remember we were in this little room, and the first guy comes in, and I love this portfolio, and halfway through the meeting, he's just sweating. I mean, I don't just mean like small perspiration. He's like got this napkin, and it's just pooling with sweat. I'm like, that's a shame. I really like the guy's portfolio. And the second guy comes in, and the same thing happens. So he leaves, and I go underneath the chair, and the light above them is malfunctioning. It's like this heat lamp halogen hell thing. And I'm like, geez, so what do you do with the third guy? Does the third guy have to sit in that chair or not? I mean, what would you guys do? Right? And I see he's waiting in the hallway, and I see he's got a jacket on. I'm like, oh God, he's got a jacket on. I tell him to take his jacket off. Does he sit in the chair? Anyway, we made him sit in the chair. And he actually was the guy we ended up hiring. So, and of course, they came up with the name, Blue Fin Dog. It's quirky, has no resemblance at all, but exactly again, right? So these guys are actually charged with building beauty into everything that we do. And I tell you, just the speed of innovation, when you're not handing it off to all these people and they start to understand your business, is incredibly powerful. So that's one of the things that we did. And we're building a customer visitor center that's going to be very, very cool as well. So these guys need somewhere neat to work. So our design guys are going to be based here, and we're also going to bring customers here. And it's all tons and tons of digital technology. So that's actually a 30-foot high smart crystal wall. We're taking sort of the Disney store philosophy. When I was at Oracle, I was fortunate enough to work on the workshops for the Apple stores and also the new Disney stores after Steve Jobs' Pixar was acquired. So we took a lot of those concepts and basically built them into this new store and this new office visitor center. It's very, very cool. So, and we're able to refresh all of the digital media. So if a customer's coming in and they're in the brewery business, suddenly we look like a brewery software company because all the digital assets are refreshed. So that's what we're doing from a visitor center perspective. Okay, so that was beauty. So beauty was one of the things we had to do. But this goes way beyond hygiene of saying all the things need to look the same and all of that. We're talking about we got to get to beauty. The next thing is context. So we have a couple of patents pending on this. And if you look at when we get work, the way we get work done in the enterprise today is there's sort of 3 domain spaces, the types of applications that we use. We have sort of process applications. These are ERP, order management, sales, inventory, all that kind of stuff. We have analytical apps, operational reporting, business data warehousing, and then we have collaboration applications, email, chat, and so on. And when we go about our day of actually making decisions or getting work done, we constantly flick between those domains, right? I'm in an order entry screen, I flip over to email to look at something, or I do chat, or I alt-tab to the web, or I look up a BI report, it could be a green bar report, and I'm flipping context all the time. And that's slowing down the pace of work, but more importantly, every time I change context and it doesn't follow me, we're seeing imprecision and margin leak creep in, right? So our goal was, how do you bring all 3 of those domain spaces together from a context perspective and actually provide context at the point of decision, okay? And this is probably the biggest advance when you look at next generation user experiences today. And the only way I can really explain it to you was actually just to show you a screenshot because it comes more obvious. The blue and white thing in the middle is actually the application. And this could be any application. It could be an ERP application, it could be a sales application, it could be a PLM app, it could be anything. And what we did is we expanded the workspace, which is why we call it workspace, to include that black frame on the right-hand side. And it's very, very simple. All we do is we have that application screen publish everything that's on it to that frame on the right. So I'm on this screen, here's the business partner ID on it, here's the sales order number, and then we populate that context frame with all the contextual stuff you need to know automatically. So in this example, it's business intelligence. So it changes the way you design applications, because now when you're looking at different screens, and different screens in an application, you can think about it as steps in a process, you're actually stepping back and saying, what is that person doing to make a decision on this screen? Okay? Are they looking at this report? Are they collaborating with this person? And we automatically, based on the context of the screen, push that information to them. It's a very, very simple idea. Okay? And that's basically what we did from a context perspective. And we build once, build better. So we built this context architecture once, and as long as all our different application groups, and we've got about 46 different applications, all have their screens just publish this information, right? Every single application automatically became contextual overnight. So it's very, 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 very powerful. The idea being that the information we provide automatically at the point of decision on my left-hand side improves the quality decision making on the application side, right? Better, faster decision making. And then we basically build a whole bunch of context apps. We have a central team that just builds these. So this happens to be business intelligence context apps from our asset management group. And you can start to cross-pollinate this business intelligence across different application screens. So I could have one application over here, a business intelligence context app, being pushed into an ERP app, right? So you start to liberate information across the whole enterprise and push it automatically in the context of what someone's doing. And then we build a whole bunch of other context apps that might not be business intelligence related. We have a map context app. So if there's anything geographically referenced on the application screen, we show it on a map. Believe it or not, 80% of all data in the enterprise has a geographic dimension to it. Okay? So we can show it on a map. We leverage search. You can automatically be able to search on the context of what's on the left-hand side. So when you do a search, it filters based on what's on the application screen. Wow, I've only got 1 minute, I'm in big trouble. Okay. So that's basically the context architecture. We then took that context architecture and we said, how do we implement social computing around it? And we didn't just want to tick the box on social, we wanted to implement it in a pragmatic way. So we created what basically looks like a Facebook page. Okay, so this was the idea that we have a news feed that unifies in a presentation layer all of the activities, data, people, and processes around the enterprise into this news feed. Okay, so it works just like Facebook does. You can go in there and you can make posts and you can share things with your colleagues. But the real power of it is that we connected it to our applications in this context architecture. So I could have been in one of my applications, I could see a little BI context app up here, and I could right-click on it and actually post it to the social news feed. Okay? So this social news feed becomes a central place where you start to share everything. But the real power of it is that it's integrated in to the applications. It's very, very powerful. I'm getting this stop thing, so I'll just show this one last thing and then I'll stop. And then another area that we did in social is we implemented something called Pulse. So this looks just like TweetDeck. With Twitter, right, you follow people, and you follow the posts that they make, and you can retweet those. What we thought would be useful in the enterprise is if you can follow information, and then the applications tweet you. So you could say you're a sales rep. You could say, I want to follow customer ABC. Any single time anything happens related to customer ABC, that application will send you a tweet, what we call a pulse. And then we represent it in this kind of TweetDeck metaphor, and also make it available inside the social news feed. All right, I'm getting the poll here. I didn't quite get through all of my content, but I'm happy to follow up with people if you'd like any further discussion. Thank you.